have to change things in this country because we're being suffocated. We're being squashed. People can't survive anymore. They can't live. They've destroyed the currency in this country. The cost of living is through the roof because they destroyed the currency. I'm going to tell you guys a quick story, and it'll show you how devious and how evil these people really are. Okay? I was friends with one of the Rockefeller family, and his name was Nick Rockefeller, and he got my attention when I was running for governor of Nevada. And I was saying lots of things that I guess they didn't like, and he wanted to befriend me to try and get me to change over. And they asked me to join the Council on Foreign Relations and other things. You know, offered me to build the Baywatch nightclubs, and they would help me do that and pay for everything and all this stuff. And I wasn't into that. And anyway, one night we were talking, and he said to me, "Aaron, what do you think Women's Lib was about?" Women's Lib, what do you think it's about? And I had the very conventional thinking, and I said, Women's Lib was about women having the right to work like men do, and having the right to equal pay with men, and I think it was a woman's rights issue. And he looked at me and he said, "You know what? You're an idiot." And he was joking when he said that. He was laughing. I said, "What was it about then? What do you think it was about, you know?" I said, "Aaron, we, the Rockefeller family, financed the whole Women's Lib movement. You understand that?" I said, "No, I didn't understand it then, but I understand it since you told me." And he said, "Why do you think we financed it? Why do you think we promoted it in all the newspapers and magazines and television shows?" And he said, "You know why? Because before Women's Lib, we could only tax half the population." And then he said to me, "You know what the second reason was?" And I said, "What?" He said, "Because now, men working and women working, they have to send the kids to our schools. And we get to train the children how to think, how to indoctrinate the children how to think from an early age.
I knew it.
And we break up the family home. And the family doesn't teach the kid morals anymore. You see, we break up the home. That's what they want. The state to control everybody. And to teach people from a young age how to be controlled, to accept control, without thinking twice about it. Think back to the Social Security number. When that was first made law, it said right on the card, not to be used for identification. Right on the card. That's what it said. Doesn't say that anymore, does it? They do things in increments. Like the frog in the pot. You know about that?
Yep.
Okay, so you take that frog, for the people who don't know, you take that frog, you throw him in the pot of boiling water, he's going to jump right out. But if you put him into warm water, and you slowly turn the heat up, he stays there till he boils to death. Well, we're the frogs. And we're boiling to death. We're here. And they control us. President Bush is now trying to get powers to put, and he has it already, some of it, to put Americans in jail indefinitely. That means life. Without a trial, without a jury, without anything. American citizens. How much more are we as a people going to allow? When are we going to stand up and say, I'm not going to take this crap anymore? When are you going to do that? Well, why do people in Serbia or Bosnia stand up and fight, and the people in France stand up? We've become so soft. I'm sorry?
So many supported and voted for.
But the thing is, this is what you have to understand. It's not President Bush. Well, who's in charge of the bankers? They control President Bush. They control Hillary Clinton. They control Bill Clinton. They control John Kerry. It's all the same. It doesn't matter which one it is. It's all coming from the banks, the bankers, the Federal Reserve System. That's where it's all coming from.
Illuminati.
You know, so the way to stop it is to shut down. Look, the Federal Reserve System is a tool for them to take power over us. If we should, because the men behind the Federal Reserve System are the real power. But without that tool, they can't do what they're doing. We have to shut down the Federal Reserve System. Imagine Barry Bonds trying to go hit a home run but he didn't have a bat. Okay? He can't do it. No matter how good a hitter he is, he needs his bat. They need the Federal Reserve System to make the money to buy the politicians. They can make all the money they want out of thin air, out of nothing. Okay?
That's what Jacob Rothschild said. He said, if I can control the money, I don't need no law.
Whoever makes the money makes the rules. You know, so that's the situation we're in today. Now, I want to introduce Bill Walls, Doc Walls.
Right.
He's going to be the next mayor. I am supporting this campaign. You know, Doc Walls, please come say hello, and then I'll take some questions. And he's so handsome, too.
I understand the theater is asking us to dismiss because...
Oh, really?
Yeah, they have another showing, and we want people to see this movie. This is my third night here. I was here Friday, I was here yesterday, and I'm here today, and it's always good to look into the faces of people who care about our freedoms, who care about America, and just to know that you are willing to come out and see a movie like this, and that you're going to go home and tell all of your family and your friends about this movie, and urge and encourage everybody to come and see it, because that is the only way this movie will ever get to general release throughout the United States of America. It's important that people see this movie and understand that we're at the same point that we were at in 1774 when 13 colonies decided that they didn't want to be controlled by a foreign entity. We're at that same position. We have to make choices. The movie said it best. Resist, resist, resist. And if we all stand up, even the nucleus of us, and resist, as Cliff indicated, they didn't care. If you resist, they cannot herd you off.
Right.
So let's be mindful of that. Now, I'm not going to continue talking, but I do want to indicate that the discussion will continue at Borders.
Right across the street.
Right across the street. And everybody is welcome to enjoy the discussion. Give Aaron a round of applause, please. Cliff Kelly, keep it going with Cliff Kelly. Guys like Grant Smart, Paul DeVito, and that's what it takes.
I just want to mention that I'll be talking about this tomorrow, but make sure everybody gets one of these. Aaron's going to say one other thing, but I just want to make sure. The first time I took a trip and noticed that on my cell phone, when I got to my destination, my cell phone had changed automatically. As I went from one time zone to another, the phone changes. I think when they're slapping these kids on the butt now when they're born, they're probably sticking a chip you know where.
Let me just say one thing. I'm going to go across the street and talk to everybody across the street of Borders. Yeah. One thing I want to say, I know some of you are leaving. Please, we don't have the funding of a big movie studio. We can't buy the advertising time and the television time and the newspaper and radio like they can. The only way we're going to succeed is by you talking about it, is by word of mouth, by getting on the internet and spreading this through the internet. It's critical for us. You get people to come to this movie theater and watch this movie. It's critical that they do. Because we can't compete with the big studios. We can't compete with the big corporations that are backed by the Fed. We can't do it. So we need you. Remember something. Without our cooperation, they can't do anything. So you don't cooperate with them. You don't accept a national ID card. Okay? You don't accept it. We will not. You know, without our cooperation, the government has nothing. So you have to wake people up, educate them, so they know they can't cooperate with the way the government is functioning today. We have to stop it. I'll see you across the street. You know, Fox News says 83% want this or whatever. You don't know what the reality is. It doesn't matter. You have rights as a person. So secure your rights and stop cooperating with the government. And they're taking your rights away. Don't allow them to do that. And what we have to do is get millions of people together who are willing to stand up and say, I'm not going to take this anymore. You can't do this to me. You're my servant. I'm not your servant. I needed that break to bring some. I see somebody raising their hand back there.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I wanted to thank you for making this film. I think you're going to inspire a lot of people.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
The world eventually collapse.
What?
It'll collapse. We'll collapse.
Oh, if we do our job, it will collapse. Yeah. They can't do anything. Remember, they have nothing to do without us.
Right.
If we don't cooperate, they can't do anything.
Exactly.
You have to understand that. But here's our difficulty. The Federal Reserve can make money out of thin air. They can buy government, they can buy Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton or George Bush. They can do whatever they want to do. What they got to do is sit at a computer and type some digits in and create money. We have to organize. We have a harder job than they do. We have to organize. It takes work. It takes effort on our part to organize, to make things happen. And I know I made this movie to begin that process. You know, if everybody would go on the website and register, and sign up to stop the Federal Reserve, to sign that petition, and then to start on the form, you know, that we can contact you by email. What I want to do is take Freedom to Fascism and make that an organization that will eventually be Freedom to Fascism, back to freedom again.
Nice.
Okay? That's what I want to accomplish.
Right.
And I want to use that organization and be able to reach out to everybody, to have demonstrations, to organize. And we need millions of people registering on the website, signing up on the website, not just a petition, but signing up to get emails, to volunteer, whatever it takes. That's what we need in all communities. Yes, sir.
I hadn't finished my question.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh,
I just want to know if you were familiar with the 9/11 Truth Movement and how you think it fits into what we're trying to do here.
I'm very familiar with the 9/11 Truth Movement, and I'm totally convinced that 9/11 was a fraud.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt in my mind about that. I mean, you know, at first I didn't want to believe it, because it's such an ugly thing to believe. But the fact is, let me ask another question. Who here knows a lot about 9/11, what happened? Who believes that the government had nothing to do with it?
Had nothing to do with it.
What?
I believe it. I want to hear.
Had nothing to do with what happened that day. Who believes the government was involved that day in what happened? Damn. Wow. Okay. Let's understand something. Bill, how many? If you know the answer, don't answer. Well, no, I can't do that. That doesn't work. Most people believe that 2 buildings fell down that day in New York. Who believes 2 buildings fell down that day?
Fell
Fell.
down.
How many believe 2 buildings collapsed that day at the Twin Towers?
From the plane or from other causes?
Whatever.
Oh,
Don't take my glory away.
Expert was killed in that building.
What?
The head of the guy of the FBI, top terrorist expert, was killed in that building. I prayed for him and I had a mass for him. I know.
Okay, well, I didn't know. I wasn't aware of that. But let me. The point I was trying to bring out
Building
was
7.
that 3 buildings went down that day, not 2. And the 3rd building was called Building Number 7. And that was a 47-story office tower. It was a pretty big. It wasn't as big as the Twins, but it was still enormous. And if you've ever seen the tape of it falling, you realize it's a controlled demolition. It came straight down. Like you see those buildings in Vegas come down. So they asked the owner of the building, a man named Larry Silverstein. They asked Mr. Silverstein, well, what made Building 7 fall down? And it fell down around 5 hours after the first 2 fell. And he said the fire department decided to pull it, meaning to bring the building down. That's what he said.
So we pulled it.
Now, that was a big mistake on his part. If you know anything about controlled demolitions, you know for a building that size, it would take weeks,
Months.
weeks, to control demolition in that building, to plant explosives on all the floors and all the right places. You couldn't do it in 4 or 5 hours and all the chaos going on there. And you couldn't do it in 4 or 5 hours if there was no chaos going in there. It's impossible. So once you know that, and he admitted it was controlled demolition, then you realize that that building had been set up for weeks in advance of 9/11 ever happening.
Why?
What?
Why?
What was in
Why
that?
what?
What was in that building?
What was in that building?
Well, I think the point was that it was supposed to go down with the Twin Towers. So there was a plan, and they had 2 planes hitting the buildings, and then you had the third building coming down.
But what was on that 23rd floor? Did you know about that?
Which part of it?
That's Mayor Giuliani's CIA
War room, you mean?
war room,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I mean, I've heard a lot of stuff, but that's not important to me. What's important to me, the crucial piece of evidence, is that they said it was pulled down by the fire department, and it's impossible to be pulled down in 4 or 5 hours, which means it was planned weeks in advance. That's the important thing. If it was planned weeks in advance, the 9/11, the Twin Towers is planned weeks in advance. Okay, it can't be any other way. And that's why the official government report of 9/11 never mentions Building 7. Because they have no explanation. They have no cover story. So the other cover story is, the planes hit it, so it went down. Which, by the way, can't be either. But rather than getting into all technical details, Building 7 is the obvious answer. So when you ask me about 9/11 Truth Movement, yes, I believe that. And I believe it shows how evil and corrupt our government is, and how much we have to resist and fight the Federal Reserve and the government. Now, I'm going to tell you one more thing, which I don't tell very often, but I'm going to say it tonight. I mentioned one of the Rockefellers across the street in the theater about women's lib. I can tell you another little story. 11 months before 9/11 ever happened, he called me up and spoke to me. Well, I should say, he was at my house, and we were talking, and he said, "Aaron, you know, there's going to be an event." And he didn't tell me what the event was going to be, and I don't know that he knew what the event was going to be. But there's going to be an event, and we're going to invade Afghanistan, so we can build pipeline out of the Caspian Sea. We're going to invade Iraq, so we can control the oil there, and control the Middle East and get them to be part of the New World Order, because they're resisting us. And we're going to invade Venezuela. We're going to go after Venezuela, which they tried to do, but Chavez beat them off. Keep trying. So all these things, in my opinion, bring me to the conclusion that the battle we're facing is that of good and evil. That's our battle. It's not whites and blacks. Blacks love me, I love blacks. It's not Jews and Muslims, I love Muslims, I'm a Jew. You know, it doesn't matter what you are. We're individuals. All Jews aren't the same. And I hear this stuff about Jewish bankers, you know, and this thing and that thing. You know, you got to stop thinking in groups. We're all individuals.
We're all human, period.
Well, we're all human individuals. I agree with you. Mm-hmm. And so stop thinking of people in terms of being, all blacks are the same, or all Jews are the same. You got to get over that way of thinking. Because it's wrong. What matters is what Martin Luther King said. It's the character of who you are that matters. Not your religion or your color or any of that. What matters is, do you have integrity inside? Do you have honor?
Nice.
You know? Do you like yourself? Because you respect yourself. I know a lot of wealthy people. I mean, really wealthy people. You know, from Hollywood politicians. I mean, I know a lot of people. They're not happy, most of them. Because they don't like who they are. I'd rather have no money and like myself than have $1 billion and not like who I am. Okay? You have to, and to like yourself means you have to respect yourself. And to respect yourself means you have to behave in a fashion that you would respect if you saw somebody else doing that. It's standing up and being true to your nature. Being true to who you are. You see, there's an old saying that a leopard never changes its spots. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I believe we all have character that can be molded like a piece of clay.
Nice.
And if we choose to mold our character to be a certain way, we can do that. And how I know that? Because I've done it.
Yeah.
I wasn't always this kind of person. And when I was a kid, I was pretty rotten. I did a lot of bad shit. You know, and I did. And I can look back now and say to myself, you know, I'm not embarrassed by it. Because all that stuff I did led me to where I am today. It's part of the path we go on. You see? So it's critical that you don't berate yourself for things you've done in the past. It's all part of growing up. But it's also important that you shape your character to be something you could admire, or you would admire in somebody else. And then you like yourself. Because you can look in the mirror and say, you know, I'm pretty good, I'm okay. I treated that person nicely today. I stood up for the right things. So that's just my own personal philosophy. So I just wanted to share that with you. Yes, sir.
When King got killed, a lot of those fires that was dead on the west side was did by the police. I happened to be in the store when they threw a firebomb in there.
Really?
I seen them coming up the alley, and I bagged up. I hid behind a big column just like that, and that firebomb come through there, exploded, fire went everywhere.
So you're saying that they created the riots?
God, they created all the fires.
Well, that's interesting you said that. Because that day, when Martin Luther King was assassinated, my nightclub was opening in Chicago that very day. And nobody came because of the riots and the fires. And eventually, my nightclub burned down too.
Wow.
And I always thought it was them that did that. You know, because they didn't want me having this nightclub. And so it's like now they don't want me on the air, talking on television.
Yeah.
So I believe in the Waco incident when the man said that they threw a bomb in there.
Oh.
I was in the store by myself.
Well, I totally believe you. And what happened in Waco, I mean, I know what happened there.
I'm 58 years old.
You're 58?
I was in the store called Howard Style Shop. When I went to the alley, I seen the police coming up with the riot gear and all like that.
Right.
So I went back and hid behind the column, and that bomb came through there, was turning around, and when it exploded, fire went everywhere.
It's just amazing, isn't it? It's just amazing. I mean, when my club, I'm going to tell you what happened in my club in Chicago.
What's the name of it?
It was called the Electric Theater and then Kinetic Playground. I'm the one who brought Led Zeppelin there to America.
Wow.
You know, and I used to put on big shows with Grateful Dead and Jefferson Airplane, Sam and Dave, you know, B.B. King, Albert King, all kinds of great bands used to play my nightclub.
Muddy Waters every Sunday.
What?
Muddy Waters every Sunday.
Muddy
night.
Waters was there. Oh, yeah. What?
Was it on Clark Street near Lawrence?
4800 Clark, yeah.
There you go.
Old Rainbow Skating Rink.
Exactly. That was my nightclub.
Totally now.
Get the skating.
Let me tell you what happened. One night, I was having remember it was the year of the Democratic Convention in '68 in Chicago. And all the hippies were coming out from all around the country to go to the convention. And they decided that they want to use my nightclub to hold a fundraiser. And I said, sure, no problem. So the club was filled with a few thousand. We held like 5,000 people in the club. It was pretty big. And there were a few thousand people there. And I'm up on the second floor in my office. And I look out the window, overlooking the cemetery there. And I see paddy wagon after paddy wagon after paddy wagon pulling up in front of my nightclub. Blue lights on, you know, the whole thing. There had to be 15 or 20 wagons at least anyway. What is going on? I'm thinking about it. It's right in front of my club. I want to see them coming into my club. So I ran downstairs, see if there's anything wrong going on. And there wasn't. So I realized they were going to raid the club. So I called everybody. I went up to the stage, and I told everybody, listen, we're being raided. Sit down on the floor, pull out, you know, and cooperate with the police. As I said that, one of the policemen threw me off the stage, from behind my back, I didn't even know it, and into the arms of another cop on the bottom, and they started dragging me out. As they're dragging me out, I'm going, you know, victory, victory, you know, I'm doing the whole thing. And I see the fire department there, and the fire department is emptying the trash cans on the floor. I said, what in the world are they doing that for? What's going on here? Why are they emptying the trash cans on the floor? They take me out to the paddy wagon, and they put me in the paddy wagon. As I step into the paddy wagon, one of the cops grabs my groin from behind me and squeezes. As a man, you probably know how that feels. And I fell to the floor in dire pain. And the next kid that came into the paddy wagon, as he was stepping in, one of the cops of the billy club smashed him in the back of the head and split his skull open. For no reason. There was no reason for any of this. The next day in the newspaper, it says, Electric Theater short-circuited, you know? And there's my picture in the newspaper with my Great Dane, and now I'm out of jail. They arrested me. I'm out of jail. And then I'll never forget this. I don't know if I should mention names or not.
Go ahead.
But a sergeant and a captain from the police department came to see me. Because I went on television to explain that what the cops did, that they were wrong, that nothing happened there. Oh, I left that important. So the fire department dumping the trash, what that was about was the cops said that the fire department went there and the place was littered full of garbage, and it was a fire hazard. And when they tried to get people to stop that, the people attacked them. They attacked the fire department, so the fire department had to call the police for help.
Oh, wow.
That was the cover story. So the next day or 2 days later, I'm going on television. I'm going trying to tell the story. Nobody paid attention. Nobody cared. And I thought this was just in Chicago. But 2 days later, the cops came to me, and a sergeant and a captain. And I said, Mr. Russo, we didn't know that was you the other night, because you're so young. I was only 24 at the time. And they said, I didn't know that was you, and we're sorry if you got hurt, you know, but we're here to help you. I said, you are? How are you going to help me? He said, listen, I know you want to stay open, and we have no reason to shut you down. So let me tell you what the deal is. There are 4 plans. There's the A plan, the B plan, the C plan, and the Super Deluxe. And the Super Deluxe plan was $2,000 a month. And you give them $2,000 a month, and whenever they're going to raid you, they call you up and tell you they're going to raid you. And when they raid people there, they don't really bother them too much. They just do it for appearances. So I took the Super Deluxe. And everything was fine, and my club was a giant success. And then one day, they said to me, look, the local alderman wants to shut your club down. And Mayor Daley, the senior Mayor Daley, is going to cooperate with them, and we're going to shut your club down. So, because we're so honorable, we're not going to take money from you anymore. That got me nervous. And I started fighting them in court. And then one night, there was a big fire. And the club burned down. And that was the end of it. And so I'm giving you my back. That happened same time around Martin Luther King's assassination in Chicago. So that made me think of the story to tell you. So I'm just sharing my stuff with you guys.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Yes, sir.
I wonder if, I'm just wondering because I'm thinking about your film and the Who Killed the Electric Car and the Inconvenient Truth. I'm wondering and then I know that Michael Moore has a film coming out about the healthcare system later on in the year. Did you all talk, or does it, or is it just that all of this is coming out now?
It's just the time. I've never spoken to any of those 3 people, those 3 movies. Never in my life. You know, I had this movie to make because I felt this is the truth about America, and I wanted to let American people know how it really works. Because they're deluded into thinking it's Republicans and Democrats. And they all hate each other. If you're a Republican, they hate you. If you're a Democrat, they hate you. And it's so stupid.
It's just the other 2, but the ones that are out now, they all sort of really tie in a sense, to what you're...
Well, in the sense that there's social issues.
Yeah.
But it's different. My movie deals with the root cause of the problem.
Right.
You know, theirs deal with the symptoms of the problem.
Right.
That's the difference in the films. And if it wasn't for Michael Moore, my film never would have been made. He was a trailblazer.
Yeah.
And I thought he made a good movie. You know, even though I didn't agree with it all. You know, I thought he made a good movie. As a filmmaker, I respected what he did. But the reason that film got so much attention from the press and the media, because that film played in to the polarization of America. You see, bankers want that. They like when the Democrats and Republicans are fighting, because nobody's paying attention to that. They like keeping things focused that way. And so while Michael made a really good film as a filmmaker, I think what he did wasn't really catching the right issues. You understand? And so that's why my film, they're not going to let on the air. Nobody will interview me. No television station will interview me.
Mr. President.
They won't let it out.
I was out of your line of sight. What can I do? Can you take just a piece of constructive criticism about dealing with the film? You go straight from, I agree. I've studied this for years and years.
I can't change the film, so I don't want to hear it.
No, but in talking about it, it goes straight from the problem of the Federal Reserve, and it has to address what moderate people will perceive it. And it's dealing the money to do good. Liberals look at anything about the federal income tax and they say, oh, you can't touch that because that's how we do good. That's how we help racism. And somehow in an audience, I mean, people in the movement, we have to tell people that takes the power, all our power to tax and create good things. They steal it.
Shit.
They steal our ability because the money all goes to the Federal Reserve. Nothing good gets happen.
Well, it doesn't go for infrastructure. It goes for interest, which shouldn't be there in the first place.
Well, it would be our.
So what's the constructive criticism?
Just to let people know that what liberals fear, and you read the reviews of it, they fear that if you interfere with the income tax in any way, then nothing's good can get any good.
What should I do with the film that could change that?
No, you can't. I don't mean that, but I'm just saying we could in reaching people.
Next question.
I'm missing it. I'm missing the point.
Okay.
What's your constructive criticism?
That if a democracy, not a democracy, a constructive. We have the ability to do good without giving all our power over to the Federal Reserve. Other people will think, oh, they don't disconnect tax and Federal Reserve. And just like when the Federal Reserve has all the money, the businessmen think, oh, well, that's the business system. You're messing with the business system. But if the Federal Reserve has these trillions of dollars that they can plug into a state, they had just tires opened up in Illinois a few months ago. Who put $1 trillion to open a store in every town in every state? There is no free enterprise.
You're losing me.
Okay, I'm just saying it interferes with free enterprise and it interferes with.
What is it you want me to do in the film? I'm missing the point.
I'm just saying just to keep the focus on all the things that the Federal Reserve interrupts. It goes directly to fascism. It stops all our normal processes.
What's going to happen to you personally?
To me personally? No. I don't think about that. If I did, I couldn't function.
Yeah.
You understand? I just go forward. I don't look over my shoulder. Anybody trying to kill me or do whatever. I mean, Fred Smart got some calls from somebody in North Carolina. 3 calls or something, right, Fred? Yeah. Telling me that I'm a target and I'm this and I'm... You don't pay attention to that crap.
Connected to some mafia, bookie underworld in the East Coast, and
look,
3 calls after 6 weeks said he was a target, and please watch out for yourself and watch out for Aaron. You need some protection.
They wanted Fred to drop out. They didn't want Fred helping. They're trying to shut this movie down. They don't want the movie being seen on television. They don't want people talking about it. They want to scare my volunteers away. They'll do anything they can do. Because this is the movie that exposes the truth. It's the only one that's ever been made like this.
Yes.
You understand? So that's what it's about. They want to scare me. And they're not going to scare me. They may kill me. Look, the truth is this, that all 4 presidents that were assassinated, McKinley, Garfield, Lincoln, and Kennedy, all 4 of them were against the Federal Reserve. Now that could be coincidence, but I doubt it.
And they were the only 4.
Yes, in blue.
I see what you're talking about, in the future, because I don't see this happening tomorrow. So as a student,
you don't see what happening tomorrow.
I mean, them closing down the Federal Reserve. So I'm wondering, wait, this is my first question. Wait. So I'm wondering, as a student, because I didn't, file my taxes this year, I would say, I didn't make too much and blah, blah, this. Right. But, I can't go to school this year because I don't have the financial aid because I didn't file my taxes. So I'm like, I was going to ask you, in a sense, if we were looking for money from the government, what would we do? That was my first question. And then when
don't look for money from the government. That's the first thing.
But I'm just saying, though, because personally, me, I don't have it. And I'd like to pull it out somewhere because I know we're going to need it within the next, year or so to at least get us to where we need to go. I know what you're talking about. But you have to understand where I'm coming from, that within the next year or so, before we can, literally shut everything down, we're still going to be, getting money to buy our gas, using money to pay our light bill, to go to school, these things.
Your thoughts aren't clear to me.
Okay.
Let me understand. I'm not getting the concept behind what you're asking.
I'm asking about when you're talking about taxes.
Yes.
Okay, so, and then you're tying that into shutting down, because I see where the movie's leading up to shutting down Federal Reserve. I saw where you tied that into. Right. So as a part of taxes, everybody fills out your taxes, you do this, you do that. But for students, we do it, our motivation for doing it is for the government to say, oh, thank you for filing your taxes, here's some money, please go to school, blah, blah, this. So as a student who's not filing the...
It doesn't, let me help you out.
Okay, please.
It doesn't matter if the Federal Reserve is in existence or the government's making the money. If the government wants to help you, they can. It's the same money.
Okay.
So it doesn't, the difference is this. If the Federal Reserve makes the money, then we have to pay them interest. and we're in great debt. If the government makes the money, there's no interest to pay, and you're not in debt anymore.
Mr. Russo, I believe what she's trying to say, though, is that the structure is set up to facilitate that. Meaning that as a student, if you want the government to help you, a Pell Grant, for instance, you have to show an income tax return. So there's no way to get around that.
I understand that. There's no question. And same thing with having an employer. If you don't want to pay your income taxes, they take it out of the source. Your employer doesn't allow you not to pay it. You understand? So the system is designed to help them. There's no question. You know, you want to get a loan to go to college. You know, they want to put you in debt and they want you to file your taxes so you're part of the system.
Right.
That's the way, that's how smart they are.
Right.
That's what they do.
I understand that part, just, you know, what do we do?
Well, it's called sacrifice.
I see.
It's called sacrifice. I mean, the truth is that look what the founding fathers did to get away from England controlling them.
Yes.
Look what we have to do to get away from the Federal Reserve controlling us. I mean, it's just sacrifice. There's no denying it. And it's not easy. But there's no question that the Federal Reserve can be shut down in a matter of weeks.
Oh, I believe it. I'm just glad you came out with this. I've been, you know, what if we got rid of money? Wouldn't we all be great?
Congress has the ability, the legal authority, to shut them down.
But then my next question ties into that. Actually, I have two more questions. When you talk about the chips, what about vaccinations? Because I've always, when they first came out with that little implantation for, you know, track your kids, I was like, what the hell? So they could just track you and then, oh, look, you were there for that murder that night. We tracked you right here. Right. You know, I was like, hell no. So then, I mean, what about vaccinations and, you know, implanting people without them knowing? Aren't you afraid of that? And then my third question, before you go off, is, you know, once we do get off and once we do shut the Federal Reserve down, you know, what will happen to the value system? Because I've heard rumors about, you know, about the Social Security number being backed by the money system being backed by, you know, human bodies, and not actual gold, and that the gold was actually stolen, that there is no more, and that's why they were creating money out of thin air.
There is no more.
Right. So but once we shut down, you know, saying the Federal Reserve, you know, place. What will happen to the value system? How we, you know?
What do you mean the value system?
Do you mean like the money system? There's no more money, so I say.
No, somehow I'm not coming across to you.
Okay. Yeah.
The government, whatever the Federal Reserve does, the government can do.
Okay.
Without interest.
I see.
So if you get rid of the Federal Reserve, doesn't mean there's no money anymore. It just means you're not paying interest on the money anymore. They're creating it. We own the money. How many times have you heard it doesn't matter what the debt is because we owe it to ourselves? People say that all the time, but we don't owe it to ourselves. We owe it to them. You understand? So by getting rid of the Federal Reserve, we're now eliminating all the debt. And we take our gold back. Because all those guys should be hung by their feet. Okay? So what has to happen is we get rid of the Federal Reserve System. It's what Abraham Lincoln said in the quote in the movie. It's the government's greatest creative opportunity. We no longer have to be slaves to money, but we can embrace it and do good for mankind. The problem will be is if the government prints so much money that there's a massive inflation and they destroy the value of the currency. But as long as you have a gold standard behind it, that won't happen. Like between 1800 and 1910, the price of a loaf of bread didn't go up for 100 years because it was all steady. You had a go-back system. Whatever money was printed was backed by something real, and there was no inflation. Today, people don't know what their future's going to be. People are nervous. They're anxiety-ridden. That's why you drive in your car, hey, you know, and they yell at each other. So everybody's like uptight. Everybody's nervous. People can't relax anymore because they're worried. They can't pay their bills. You know, that's because of the Federal Reserve System. And so, and they're going to take it further into slavery, complete slavery. All right, that person keeps raising his hand.
Yeah, I've been waiting patiently.
Not patiently, you've been doing this. Well, hello, Mr. Russo!
Impatient.
I'm over here!
I want to know if you could expound on the concentration camps, if you've heard of that, the 600 concentration camps around the country, Project Rex 84.
What's happened is the government is paying Halliburton, I think $585 million to build detention centers around America to put people. And they say it's for immigration problems. What?
Alex Jones' site.
Infowars.com?
Oh, yeah.
Prison Planet?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can go on the web, on Google, and go to Alex Jones' site, and you find out, just put in Halliburton detention centers, and it'll come up on Google. Yes, sir.
It seems like the least respected, or one of the least respected,
talk louder, please,
is elected officials. And I think we have to get to the meat of the matter. The ones who took it away from us, to those elected officials. We have to get back to these elected officials and demand what they stand for instead of wishy-washy. I mean, we got the biggest wishy-washy in the United States.
Federal officials aren't wishy-washy. They don't care about us. They're working for the bankers.
We have to...
We're wishy-washy, not them. What?
We have to make sure that these elected officials know our concerns. Because they just keep on doing it and doing it.
Yeah, because they're controlled. That's the point. I agree with you. That's what the whole point of freedom to fascism is. That's why I asked you to join, so we can set up millions of people together to take on this battle. So what we need is to build the numbers. And that's why I ask you to tell everybody about this. Spread the word so people know. Go on the website and sign up. You know, sign up to sign the petition to shut it down. And also sign up 2 things. Sign up so that we have your name and your email address, you know, that you want to be part of this. And those 2 things. And then when we have the right amount of numbers, you'll hear from me. Believe me. I have big plans.
Nice.
You know, I don't want to give them all away. Who's a cop in here? Anybody a federal cop in here?
I'm a soldier.
Somewhere.
I'm a soldier.
Are you a federal narco?
I'm a Army reservist.
Army reservist.
And I'm paid to at least...
I was actually talking to the white guy with the bald head. Who was raising his hand. Are you working for the federal government?
No,
okay.
But I do want to add something.
Please talk louder.
About the wishy-washy thing?
Yes.
Part of it is because a majority of Americans have been immunized from thinking for themselves. And when someone in this country starts thinking independently, you're immediately labeled as a communist, a Nazi,
extremist,
a fanatic, whatever. And liberals are going to hate you. Conservatives are going to hate you, but I don't care. We shouldn't care. We should be standing up for what we believe, and I thank you for putting that in the film.
Thank you. I don't care what they call me. You know, it's like what Sherry Jackson said in the film. She said, they call us extremists, they call us tax protesters. I don't care what they call me. Just show me the law. Yeah, it doesn't matter what they call you. That's just part of their propaganda. You see, they have to demean people, to label people. Look, a lot of the reviews, I'm going to tell you something. A lot of the reviews that came out, like you just saw the movie. The movie was about, the tax section of the movie, was about the fact that the Supreme Court said they can't do this. That's the basis of my argument. Right? Every one of those reviews that said they didn't like the movie, they all said the same thing. That my argument was that the 16th Amendment wasn't ratified, which was mentioned one time, very briefly in the movie. So the fact that 10 or more reviewers all said the same thing, which wasn't true, means someone's telling them what to write.
Yep, definitely.
Do you understand? They don't want this movie out. They want to shut this down as best they can. And it's up to us to make sure it goes alive and thrives.
Yes.
We have to thrive. Yes.
Mr. Russo, in keeping with that
Call me Aaron.
Aaron.
Thank you.
First off, the camera loves you.
It does?
Just as a simple plan, how do we take back our government? How do we make this go back and work for us?
I told you how.
Simply, we stop paying taxes?
No. Shut down the Federal Reserve System. Stop the people who control our government. Look, this government's going to be, I don't want to have to say it over and over again. Maybe I'm not being clear. This government is going to be run by the people of this country or by the banks. If you want to be run by the people, you have to shut down the Federal Reserve System so that we run our own country again. That's the country of we the people, for the people, by the people, which is not the case anymore. So you want a solution? I don't care about taxes. You want to pay a tax? Pay a tax. I don't care. There's no skin off my back. I'm telling you there's no law that requires you to do. Whatever you want to do is up to you. But I am telling you this. Shut down the Federal Reserve System.
And we do that simply by
going to the
Start using
website.
credit card.
But you do it by millions of people organizing together and standing up and letting the politicians in Washington know that they will get no votes unless they sign an affidavit agreeing to vote to shut down the Federal Reserve System, by being heard, by having millions of people being heard, by marching on Washington, all colors, all races, all everybody. We don't want this in this country, and you have to be heard, and that's what it's going to take. It's going to take massive civil, like the Martin Luther King led the stuff down south. That's what it takes. It takes people speaking up. We're not going to be slaves anymore, and we want to shut down the Federal Reserve System. And one thing it's going to do for sure is waking up the rest of the people in America to what the truth is. You understand? That's what it's going to take.
Can we do a Boston Tea Party? You know, like
I'm up for it.
taxation without representation. That's what we did the Boston Tea Party for originally. So we're
I have no
tax
problem.
without representation still, for now.
Look, I'm up for doing a lot of things.
So we can throw.
I don't want to talk about them yet.
Let's watch Fight Club.
Look, I'm with you. There's lots of ideas and lots of plans. But the truth is, we can't execute anything until we have the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
We need the people first. Once we have the people, watch what happens. There'll be massive, massive demonstrations.
Would there be a way for us to know, for you to update us on how these things are going?
I told you to sign up on the website. That's how I update everybody. Yes, sir.
Aaron, you got to, in Chicago, you got to be very careful because we don't know if they got spies here or
So
what they're going to do. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, people get hurt. You got to be careful.
Don't let the darkness overtake you. And what Patrick Henry says is the truth. Give me liberty or give me death.
Yep.
And I'll fight. And we'll all fight together and stand together.
Awesome.
Just spread the word to everybody. That's what it's going to take. Spread the word to people in other cities. New York, Los Angeles, Detroit. Spread the word. Let people find out about this. Spread the link to the website around. Call people on the phone and tell them to see the movie. You know? The problem is people don't work hard enough to get this done. And the truth is, I can't do it alone. There's only so much I can do. So I'm here to try and motivate people to do it.
With all your research with the experts, how shielded is who owns those shares of the Federal Reserve?
No one knows who owns them.
And what do the experts speculate on where those, as a private corporation, those shares may be held?
Well, we know it's incorporated in Delaware, and as Congressman Paul said, it's private. Nobody knows who owns the stuff, and they keep it.
Belgium. Could they subpoena the Fed?
How?
Belgium. That's where the computer's at.
You know, everybody would love to know. I mean, they say, well, the member banks own it, you know, but that's just a cover answer. Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
What's your name? You're cute.
My name is Carrie.
Hi, Carrie.
You are too.
I am too? Even my blotchy face? You know, I'm taking this medicine, and it's making my face kind of blotchy and pimply from the medicine, so I'm a little bit embarrassed by it. So I'm sorry about that, like my movie.
I appreciate that you took the time to make this movie and that you basically put it out there yourself.
Will you give me a massage tonight for that?
Make you walk on your back. You didn't put it. What I'm trying to get at here, though, is...
Speak up, we can't hear you.
Okay, my concern is with the RFID chips and the national ID card.
Why don't you stand up?
Sure. I want to know what can be done in refusing the national ID card. Where can we go? I know I'm going to get in trouble when I say I don't want this. I want to know if there is already people in place that will be able to help the public.
Let me put you this way. It's going to come in your driver's license.
I know.
So it means you can't drive with a driver's license. And that's 2 years from now.
You don't need one.
Okay? And I expect to have millions of people driving without driver's licenses. Okay, so there's nothing they can do with it. That's what I keep saying. Let's organize. Let's make this happen together. So they do it in your driver's license because they know you're going to do it that way. Oh, I need a driver's license. I can't drive without it. Bullshit. You know how to drive? Does a license make you drive better? No. By the way, a license is bullshit. Okay, let me tell you something.
Nice.
It's a privilege granted by government. The truth is, you have a right to walk, you have a right to ride a bicycle, you have a right to ride a horse, you have a right to drive a car. The difference is, when you drive a car, it could be dangerous for other people. So, what you need is a certificate of accomplishment that you know how to drive, but you don't need a license. So license means they're giving you a privilege. Screw that. You get a COA, a certificate of accomplishment. I can now exercise my rights. I'm a good enough driver, I can exercise my right to drive. You're not giving me any license, because I have a right. And stop, you need a license. What do you need a license to open a hardware store for? What open a beauty parlor? You need a license for that? No.
Nope.
You need a license to give a massage? No. What's all this license crap? It's how they control you.
Right, so you know what I'm saying?
Aaron.
Exactly.
Also, the Catherine Albrecht, who was in the film, she's going to be at Transitions Bookstore.
Excuse me, this isn't a promo for Catherine yet.
If you want to know more, she's going to be at Transitions Tuesday.
Yeah, she'll be a transition. She's really
1,600
she's brilliant about the chips.
What day? Tuesday?
Tuesday at 7 o'clock.
Night at 7, Transitions.
Also, I have a question.
North Avenue and Southport.
I gotta take some other questions. Didn't you want to ask a question? Somebody over here? You did. Okay.
I was at Transitions when you first came to the
Right.
I am from St. Louis, and I spoke with you about bringing the film to St. Louis. I almost wore my fingertips off trying to reach you to see what we could do to bring the film to St. Louis. I had a phone number from some guy, and it's like, are there really team players here, or are we going to get this moving forward?
Well, here's what you have to understand. It takes money. It takes money.
I understand.
Every city you go to takes money to open the movie.
Right.
Okay.
So we already had the theater.
But do you have money for television advertising? Do you have money for newspaper advertising?
No, but
do you have
we
money
have
for radio? Do you have money for prints?
We have a network already. There was
let
no one
me
that called
make
back or said anything. That's
I don't know.
all I'm saying.
I don't know anything about that. Okay, honestly.
Well, what do we do to move forward?
Well, hopefully this will be a commercial.
A series of revelations that got you down the path.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Well, you talked to the Rockefeller, right?
Yeah.
When you were running for governor of Nevada. And you must have had other conversations. Who told you that, say, the income tax was illegal?
I've heard it for years. So I decided to investigate myself. I thought they'd make a good documentary to find out whether it's true or not. And that was one of the reasons why I made this movie. So I wanted to find out the truth. And then when I called the IRS on the phone, and I said, guys, I'm going to make a documentary about you guys, and I'd like to know what the law is, and I'd like to interview the commissioner. And they said, well, no, you can't interview the commissioner. And we can't, go to the website and you'll see where the law is. And the website was just propaganda and nonsense. I said, hey, there's something wrong here. They refused to answer the people's questions about where the law. If there was a statute written by Congress, they would say, look, go to the books, here's the statute number, and go look it up. Go read it. But they don't do that. So there's something wrong. They go all around the bush, go here, go here. They never give you a straight answer. It's all propaganda. So that's what made me make the movie. And then once I started making the movie, I said, this movie, for me, the IRS and the taxes represent the police state, and I think the movie should continue beyond the IRS. Originally, the movie was called April 15th, The Real April Fool's Day. That was the original title of the movie. And it was 100% about the IRS. And I decided to change it, because I felt there were issues that were much more important than the IRS. And that's why I got into the Federal Reserve and the New World Order and the police state. So that sort of evolved out of all that. Anybody else? Who happened I called on?
Me? Okay, thank you. I have a couple questions. One of the questions is...
one second. Do me a favor. When somebody's asking a question, don't keep your hands raised, because I find it distracting. Okay? Just let the person finish speaking, and then raise your hand.
Okay. I'd like to know, why do you support Build Dark Walls here in Chicago? And what is your take on rap music as it affects as a new culture affecting America?
Well, it's like this. First, I support Bill Dark Walls because he saw the movie, and he said he believes in everything in the movie, and that he would make that part of his campaign. And anybody who recognizes what's happening and talks the truth, I'll support. And so, it's so damn good.
Because they know.
Because I love most music, you know. I don't like country and western very much, and I don't like rap very much because it's a little too aggressive for my taste in music. Okay, but that doesn't mean I don't respect the people who do, because it's very difficult to do good rap. You know, it's just not my taste necessarily, and so and I can't say for sure what it's doing to society. I think that's your question. You know, I don't know. You know what it's doing to society. I know that everybody dresses the same. You know, the hat's on the side, the pants down to the knee. You know, it's like everybody has the same costume. You know, and I certainly recognize that. You know, but on the other hand, anybody here have the hat on that way? But I really don't have a good opinion about what it's doing to the country socially. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, and everybody was talking about the Grateful Dead and drugs and smoking pot. I smoked a lot of pot, and I did. I was definitely smoking lots of weed, you know, when I was younger. And I did my fair amount of drugs when I was younger. And everybody said, you know, it's going to kill you and this and that, and the parents were crazy and up in arms about it. But Frank Zappa said a very smart thing about music. He said if music really had that much of an effect on people, then everybody would be in love. Because that's all you hear is love songs. Right? I mean, all songs about how much I love you and you love me and that girl, I love that girl, you know. But, you know, I think music is limited to the effect it has on you. And I know for me that drugs were a very important part of my life when I was a kid, you know. And now I hate drugs because my son's a drug addict. Okay? And I hate what it's done to him. And I've had no success in getting him to stop, you know. And it's very painful for me. Okay? It's very painful for me to have my son be a drug addict. And he can't stop himself. It reminds me of Richard Pryor, who I loved. I loved Richard Pryor dearly. And I just saw that man, who was probably the most talented man I've ever met, the funniest guy I've ever met, you know, and I've met them all. See how he destroyed his life, you know, through the use of crack and crack cocaine. And, you know, when I made Trading Places, the original cast was to be Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder.
Wow.
That was the original cast. It wasn't Eddie Murphy and Danny Aykroyd. And Richard couldn't be found. I mean, Gene Wilder agreed to do it. And Richard Pryor, he was somewhere in Hawaii, stoned out, and he couldn't be spoken to, you know. And I love Richard, you know. I mean, I did a show with Richard at the Hollywood Bowl, and I'll never forget. Oh, I'm not going to get into that tonight. But any other questions? I'm sorry. Yes?
You know, we're not on an island here, let's say. You know, the rest of the world is starting to vote against our currency.
Yes.
Objectively.
That's right.
You can see it drop.
Yes.
The secret's out all over the world.
But I think the central banks are in collusion to prop it up. In other words, the foreign central banks keep buying the dollar. Can you talk louder?
Yeah, they're trying, but it's dropping regardless.
Yeah, but it hasn't made new lows yet lately. You know, it's around 86.
Right.
Right? And so if it breaks down to 80, I would say it's really starting to crack.
One last thing, you know, your Federal Reserve issue did not mention about JFK issuing the United States notes. Those have disappeared.
Treasury, I mean the silver certificates.
Not silver. They had a red seal on them, United States note.
Yeah, but they were backed by silver.
Not the silver certificate.
Not the original silver certificate.
Nothing to do with silver. It said United States note, where now it says Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
And we have a green seal, it had a red seal. And that was his initial move against the Federal Reserve currency. He was actually directly issuing notes. They had silver certificates at that time, but that had nothing to do with that. He issued a new form of currency. He used to pay a lot of the military in cash with that currency.
May I say something?
Yeah.
He issued Executive Order 11110. And that executive order said he was going to print up, I forget how many hundreds of millions of dollars in U.S. Treasury notes, and he wanted it backed by silver. So what you're talking about is why I believe the Federal Reserve killed him. That's my own opinion. It's only an opinion, it's not a fact. Okay? But I believe that because he was starting to take on the Federal Reserve. When you see people like in the Warren Commission, like All Inspector, saying that the bullet turned around in midair. Okay? And you know that it wasn't Fidel Castro, it wasn't the mafia, who can make the senators put out a Warren Commission report that was full of lies, like a bullet turning around in midair. It's the only explanation they have. You know that only the Federal Reserve has that kind of power. So that's the only reason why I believe it. The Federal Reserve killed John Kennedy. But it's only speculation.
I believe
everything else is fact.
The Spectre got cancer for lying, didn't he?
That's not true.
What's part? You got cancer?
He is. Everybody gets sick with me.
I got cancer and I was telling the truth.
Why?
Were you? Yeah, I hope so.
This is the little boy who saw the film.
Yeah, you did.
You didn't want my kids to see the film, but he saw the film.
You saw the film? What's your name, son?
Marcus.
Marcus?
Yes.
What'd you think of the film?
It was pretty good.
Uh-oh. Why did you put your mother to the side? It was pretty good, Mom.
Got to start early.
That's right. Teach them. Oh, I could. Let me ask you a question. Who haven't I addressed yet that wants to be heard? I've addressed you already. Don't raise your hand. I know I spoke to you already.
Click
no, you didn't ask me a question before.
No.
Media coverage, use your local media.
Wait a second. Wait a second.
I introduced you across the street. I haven't said a word since I've been here.
Oh, you're Cliff.
That's right.
Is that big
I just wanted to mention
come on the show.
you have a lot larger audience
go up there.
in Chicago. I don't need to. You have a lot larger audience in Chicago, as you might know. I had a TV show at one time on cable with, some of you may remember, Sherman Skolnick. And Sherman and I talked a lot about the volumes of the law that never was, and we got all kinds of good publicity on that. So there's a lot of people here that are aware of it. What I wanted to ask you, when you were in Congress, up until 9/11, for 9 months prior to 9/11, there were all kinds of attacks on the IRS. If you remember the Senate hearings with Grassley, and they had all these people coming in talking about how they'd been ripped off and how homes were taken.
Yes.
In fact, on the front cover of Newsweek, I still have it, they showed the American terrorist, and the American terrorist was the IRS agent.
Right.
That was the cover of Newsweek magazine. They had all these people, they were dumping on the commissioner, they were kicking his butt, and then of course 911 came and you didn't hear any more about it. But I'm wondering, you know, if all of these people, and there were all kinds of testimony from Democrats and Republicans, of course Grassley is a Republican, and he was the main guy just kicking their butts, yet now we've heard nothing about it. They had one other thing, just last year.
You're not thinking that 9/11 was done to shove the criticism of the IRS?
I'm not sure what the situation is. It certainly still exists. I mean, what they're doing now is just as bad as before. It's a distraction, yeah.
Let me say something.
It could have been a convenient distraction.
They often do attack the IRS for propaganda purposes. You know, let people think that they're fighting for them.
Right.
The IRS, it's done. It's almost disinformation. You know, they never do anything about the IRS.
Well, no, but I've seen it before, but I never saw it to this degree.
Right.
It was unbelievable. And then the Wall Street Journal even printed the fact that they called 15 IRS agents with the same question and got 12 different answers.
Yeah, go to an accountant with the same tax return. Yeah. They'll tell you, each one will tell you a different number what you owe. This is incomprehensible. See, the IRS code doesn't matter because the Supreme Court said they can't do that.
Yeah.
So whatever the code says doesn't matter because they can't write law. They can't be in defiance of the Supreme Court. And that's the whole crux of the argument. And no one's ever brought that out before. You know, they always go into the interpretation of the IRS code and this thing. Once you get to the code, forget about it. It stops before the code. They don't have the authority from the Constitution or the Supreme Court to do it. End the story. And there's no statute written. End the story.
Mr. Russo, briefly.
Call me Aaron.
Aaron.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
You have a bigger stomach than me.
He's a doctor.
I know. That's what I was talking about.
I've been heavily...
He wants me to be healthy, but look at that stomach. I'm teasing you. Come on.
I am guided to tell you something, and I don't understand what it's going to lead to. But all words have numerological values.
Words?
All words, all acronyms have numerological values.
Right.
and you should come up with something that is titled SRI, which is the reverse of IRS. I don't understand what you will come up with.
I do. I got the answer.
What?
My son's name is Sam. Sam Russo Incorporated. That's all right, baby. No problem.
That's one thing. In terms of a strategy letter or something else that you do, it will have an inverse value that will attract to it the things that you need.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. I do. Only people who haven't asked questions who want to first. I didn't ask you yet?
Yes,
okay, go ahead.
I have a question about the...
Talk louder, please.
I have a question about the vaccinations. Is it possible for the doctors to insert a tracking device in the small child without a parent knowing?
Yes, it's possible. I'm not saying they're doing it, but it's possible.
Is it detectable by an X-ray?
I would think so.
There we go.
I would think it would be, yes.
Okay, now I've been told by my child's doctor that I can be reported to DCFS.
You've been told what?
I've been told by my child's doctor that I can be reported to DCFS for not vaccinating her as a health hazard.
Well, it's probably true.
Yeah,
It's probably true they can do that to you. In today's world, the government thinks they own you. Well, you got to have it.
We've done this. She's got something.
We have never had our kids vaccinated, and we used First Amendment religious rights. It's our religious right not to have our kids vaccinated.
You know, I mean...
It works.
I took my kid out of the hospital right after he was born. Oh yeah, I took my kid right out because I got into a big battle. I got into a big battle with the hospital when my son was born. I'm getting a little bit tired, but when my son was born, I was in the room with him and my wife, my girlfriend really, and when he was born, the nurse said, and I wanted him to be on my wife's breast, you know, and bond right away. And the nurse came and said, all right, listen, we have to put something in his eye, silver oxide or something. And so we want to take your child to put the silver. It's okay, I'll go with you. So I went with her, and we went up to the floor upstairs, one floor up. And after they did what they had to do, I said, okay, let's go back downstairs. I want to put the baby with my wife. Oh, no, we can't go back down. Once you're up here, you can't go back downstairs again. So what do you mean? I said, I want my baby with my son, with my wife. No, you can't do that. I said, okay, then I'm going to bring my wife up here, you know, on the gurney. I said, you can't do that either. I said, what do you want to do? I want to put your child in the room with all the other kids, you know, with the bright lights on and everything. So I said, that's not acceptable to me as the father. Nice. And so I went upstairs to see the head of the hospital, some woman, and I tell her my feelings. I said, sorry, I can't help you. Those are the rules of the hospital. I said, I'm this child's father. It's my law. It's my rules that count, not yours. Do you understand that? And I'm going to go downstairs and bring my wife up to the next floor and put her with my son. So as I'm leaving, she calls up security. And I go downstairs to see my wife on the second floor. And I put on one of those green aprons around it, you know, over my side, a suit and tie on. And I put one of those things on, and I'm wheeling her to the elevator. And I get to the elevator, and in the elevator are 6 big bruisers, you know, who are looking for me. Then they don't know that's me. Right? And they're going to the 3rd floor. And they're talking in the elevator. Has some crazy guy is going to take his kid out of the, what's that called, that room called? The nursery. Out of the nursery. So as they get out of the elevator, I say, by the way, guys, I'm the crazy guy, you know? And I proceed to take Heidi into a room. I just put her into a room that was empty. And now I go out, and I go to the nursery to get my kid. And when I get there, these 6 big guys are there, you know. They look like the guys in the movie at the IRS building who try to stop me. And They said, listen, you can't go in there. I said, I'm going in there. They said, you can't do that. We have to stop you. I said, okay, I'll tell you what. I'm going to go back to the room where Heidi is. And my child's not in my hands. In 5 minutes, I'm going in there. The nurse comes into the room a few minutes later. Says, Mr. Russo, you have to understand the rules of the hospital. And I said, no, you have to understand the rules that I'm the child's father. And I'm in charge, you're not. And I want my child with his mother. I don't want him in a room with bright lights on with a bunch of screaming children to be the way he walks into this world. I want him sucking on my wife's breast and being comfortable and warm. And, she said, you can't do that. I said, okay, then I'll go out there and go into the room. She said, wait, don't go out there yet. Don't do anything. She comes back 5 minutes later. She says, listen, we can't let you do it. I said, okay, I'm going out now. I said, I'm going to tell you one more thing. Those guys might stop me, but I suggest you do something. She said, what's that? I suggest you move all those children away from the class that they look into.
Wow.
Because they may stop me, but I guarantee you, people may be going through that glass. And I wasn't a little guy, and I was strong. I said, people are going to be flying through that glass. So start moving the children so they don't get hurt. And then we'll see what happens. She says, you would do that? I said, I'm going to get my child. It's your responsibility to move the children. I'm giving you advance warning. Okay? I am giving you advance warning. She came back 5 minutes later with my child. Woo! And that's what it is in life. You have to stand up for your rights, what you believe in. And then I checked out, as soon as the baby came to my wife, I was out of there. Screw the vaccinations. Screw it all. You have to stand up for what you believe in. And you have to do what's right. And you can't let these government institutions dictate to you how you live your life. That's the point. It's your life. It's your children. You see the judge the other day told some kid who was a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid who was getting sick on chemotherapy, he had cancer, and he didn't want to take it anymore. And the judge says to the parents, we're going to put your child into custody of the state, and we're going to give him chemotherapy even if he doesn't want it and you don't want him to have it. Whose life is it? You have a right to decide for yourself what you want to take. How does the FDA have a right to tell you what medicines you can have? Now, I can understand if they said, well, we recommend this and we don't recommend that, and then you're free to do what you want. But don't tell me you're going to limit my choices. And that's why I went to Germany to get my own cancer treatment, because they didn't limit my choices. I was able to do the things look, I'm going to tell you something. I don't tell a lot of people again. Before I went to Germany, the surgeon in the States said I was hopeless, and I was a dead man, and to go get my papers together. Okay? I'm telling you now, I'll be here another 63 years.
Go, baby, go!
And the whole point is, you have to take responsibility for yourself. Don't listen to doctors blindly. Don't listen to teachers blindly. Think for yourself. Learn how to think. Stop being dumbed down. Stop watching that stupid damn television set with all the fake news. You understand? You have to learn how to think. That's what's critical. All right, I'm going to take one more question. Who haven't I asked? Is there somebody? Haven't I spoken to you already? No? Have I spoken to you already? What's this? No. I don't have my glasses on. Oh, the store closes in 30 minutes. What? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to take one or two more questions. Then I'm going to turn the podium over to Bill and Cliff so they can talk to you as well. And I am getting tired. I just came through a cancer operation. And 38 stitches, folks.
Wow.
And can I take off my shirt? It's hot.
Sure. Why not?
I'm very serious. But
That's a felony.
But I like to fool around. You understand that? I have a sense of humor. I like to fool around. Now, do me a favor. Everybody raise their hand who wants to ask a question who has not been addressed tonight. 1, 2, 3. You weren't addressed already? No. 4. Okay. 5. You weren't addressed. You spoke before. Yeah. What?
I said something about the vaccination
All right.
thing.
1, 2. Wait a second. This is going to take the next half hour. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's too many.
Not really your question.
Okay. You with the camera. What is it?
Okay, good. So, have you done any research on being a sovereign citizen? Do you know much about that subject?
I know that in America, all citizens are sovereign. Okay, so that's what I know. I mean, it may not function that way anymore, but that's how it's supposed to function. Next question. So I'm going to have to move through these quicker. Yes?
You talk about now watching TV and all that jazz. There were people 10 years ago who knew about this. And
sure.
Because they were reading Edward Griffin's book, Creature from Douglas Island,
right.
I read, and before I heard anything about this. Plus, I was getting on my...
They said volume 1. Will there be a volume 2?
Oh, yes. There'll be a volume 2 and a volume 3 and a volume... Until the last volume is going to be Freedom to Fascism, Back to Freedom. When we get that, that's when I'll stop.
So as an aspiring screenwriter, do you think I should just forget about writing fiction and only do, or is there a way to do fiction and still incorporate what you want to say subtly?
That depends where your heart is. That's up to you. That's a personal decision. Wait a second, let me get rid of this. Hello? Hello? Who's this? You're on the air. IRS? I'm sorry. I didn't mean anything I said. I really didn't. I didn't mean anything. I'm so sorry. Mr. Greenspan. Oh, whatever you want, sir. Whatever you want, I will do for you. I'll lick your feet. I promise you. It's not a problem. You want sex with me? Who else? Wait. Who raised their hands before you? I did you already, didn't I?
No.
Good.
Basically, my question is: are you optimistic that the American people will, kind of give up the amenities of empire, or are you more doing this as a means to disseminate a certain meme so people will become aware of this, or you actually think this will lead to the destruction of the Federal Reserve?
I think it has a possibility. My goal is
are you optimistic about that?
Reserve. I don't know. It depends upon the people. I don't know. I can't say. I can only tell you that that's my intention. That's my goal. And I'll work as hard as I can to get it done. It depends on what everybody else does. Yes?
I noticed your transcript is for sale on your website.
Yeah.
Is there any possibility that might be free and not for sale in the interest of disseminating the information? I understand you want to raise funds.
Unlikely.
For movies and things.
People are buying it, so I can't give it away.
People are what?
Buying it, so I can't give it away. Who else?
Is that a more accurate?
What?
That you quote $50,000 to bring it to a theater in another city, or could you give them a little more?
It depends on the size of the city. Okay? New York was a lot more than that. Okay. Kansas City was less than that. Chicago was a little bit more than that, not a lot more. So it depends upon the size of the city and the cost of media in that particular city. But the $50,000 I spent here wasn't enough. That's all I could afford. So $50,000 I take as an approximate number. So, yes. You got to check for 50 grand?
I have ways that can be raised.
Really? Yeah. Selling drugs or what? Okay, yes, sir.
Part of that paid for a radio ad? That's the only way.
I didn't run radio. I ran television and newspaper. I didn't have money for radio.
I heard it on the radio.
Oh, you heard the radio? It was volunteers who put it on the radio.
I heard about your movie. That's the only way I heard about it.
I'm telling you, volunteers bought time on the radio and paid for it, and that's why you heard it on the radio. I didn't buy any radio.
Is this you have to put it in, is that a process where you have to put it in the movies first before you can get a DVD
yes.
that people can buy?
The theaters won't allow you to put it into the DVD form first, or they won't play it in the theaters. Who else?
I just wanted to say one thing. When we were purchasing our tickets, I don't know if anyone else noticed, I ended up with a ticket under a different name.
What do you mean a different name?
Well, I wanted a ticket for your movie, and I ended up with a ticket, something about candy. I can't remember. There's another movie that was showing in the theater that they gave me a ticket for. I remember when Spike Lee movie, when Spike Lee movie came out, the same thing happened with him, where they were giving people tickets under a different name.
Did that happen to anybody else here?
No.
Well, I
just a mistake.
Okay.
Well, I did turn it back in. I took it back and turned it in, but I was just wondering, you know, if other people had noticed that.
Conspiracy thinking. Good for you. Yeah, good for you. Anybody else?
Yeah, candy with strangers is what they gave us.
Okay. Doc Walls, Clint. Oh, who are you pointing at, Paul?
Wait a minute.
Yeah, I'm saying. Who wants to come up first?
One over here.
Oh, I'm sorry. One more question.
Okay, I wanted to know if you'd explored the possibility of being a guest on Chicago Tonight. Have you?
What is Chicago Tonight?
It's Channel 11. Yes. Local PBS, local news and events.
Oh, if they put me on, can you put me on there?
I have no contact.
Well, then what are you asking the question for?
Well,
I'll go in anywhere, babe.
I suggest you call
I'm
them.
a whore. I'll go anywhere.
Yeah.
I suggest you call them. And secondly, I recommend a book called Worse Than Watergate by John Dean.
Yes,
Watergate, John Dean. It gives chapter and verse about why Bush should be impeached for lying to the American people and getting us into Iraq.
All right, listen. Doc Walls is going to take over. I'm going to sit down for a minute.